Does wanting non-monogamy make me a bad person? Let's unpack that idea. I'm Poppy Scarlett and I love talking about love. I also make content under the name Polly and Poppy on Instagram, so find me there too. Degenerate, selfish, scared of commitment, slut, whore. These are all things that I've been called on the internet for being non-monogamous. These are criticisms from people I do not know, people I will never meet, people I do not care about. But these people are people who, as far as I can see, simply cannot even conceive of the gentleness, care, consideration, openness, the work, the self-work, the work you have to do on your relationships that it takes to be a non-monogamous person in non-monogamous relationships. By which I obviously mean consensual non-monogamous relationships that everyone has agreed to be in. Despite the criticisms that I sometimes hear, I categorically do not believe that I'm a bad person for being non-monogamous. And I simply refuse to be bothered by criticisms from people who cannot imagine what it's like to love multiple people. They're not my people, okay? And if you've come to this video because you're struggling with feelings of guilt or feelings of shame because you are non-monogamous and you've realized this, I just want you to know that those people that I just spoke about, those voices, those trolls, those internet commenters, they are not representative of people as a whole. And actually, well-adjusted people who are confident in their own selves and happy with their lives do not make such harsh criticisms about how other people choose to live their life. And when grappling with feelings of guilt and shame, I need you to know that it's important to simply accept that some people will never be able to understand who you are, why you are the way you are, and that's fine. And it is not your job to change their minds, particularly people that you don't know that well, acquaintances, people on the internet. So unless it's someone that you deeply care about who's really important to you, just kind of let that go. People who passionately argue that monogamy is the only correct, ethical, natural, right way to do relationships will claim that their argument is simply fact. It's just based on science or biology or something. This worldview, the current dominant worldview aligns with how they are most naturally inclined towards relationships, and therefore they seek confirmation in the information that they find in the world about why monogamy is right, and therefore they believe it. Confirmation bias, simple. But everything that we know about what is the right way to do a relationship is largely made up, and there are people who benefit from you believing that monogamy and a nuclear family is the only viable route to happiness. Personally, I sincerely believe that some people are more inclined towards monogamy and others are more inclined towards non-monogamy. Neither is better, neither is right. I believe that we would all be significantly happier if we were simply given the freedom to choose which relationship style suits us, and then to find other people who also align on that vision of what love looks like. But what we have is a system that kind of funnels us into a certain type of relationship and tells you that if you can't do monogamy, if you don't want to do monogamy, you're wrong, you're broken, you lack self-restraint, you're an awful person. This leaves people feeling sad, confused, broken, and like a bad person. Your worldview, including beliefs and opinions, starts to form during childhood as you're socialized within a particular cultural context. It gets reinforced over time by the social groups you keep, the media you consume, even how your brain functions. It influences how you think of yourself and how you interact with the world. So let's think about the fact that most of the fairy tales, most of the stories we're told when we grow up, most of even the stuff that we learn in class is all geared around this idea of a monogamous heterosexual relationship. So people just repeatedly being told over and over and over again, this is the best way to be, this is the right way to be, anything outside of this. Don't even think about that. Confronting facts that don't line up with your worldview might trigger a backfire effect, which can end up strengthening your original position and beliefs, particularly with political charged issues. What this quote is telling me is that the fact that you exist is not enough for some people to believe that that is an okay way to exist because it confronts their worldview. And that is one of the reasons why people struggle to just have rational conversations about political things, about relationships, about gender, about sex, because they have their way of thinking, and anything outside of that, even if it is a real human being standing there and saying like, well, this is me, this is my truth, people become blind to it. They refuse to see it. Someone told me something really interesting recently, that apparently the cultural attitude towards gay people significantly shifted in America when Will and Grace was airing. When that TV show was popular, people were more likely to be like, hey, you know what? Gay people, they're okay. That Will, he's all right. When people see something more repeatedly, they get more comfortable with the idea of that. And we simply have not had great examples of non-monogamous relationships in the media. We simply do not have that. Okay, that's not true. There are some examples, and a few of my peers, Chill Polyamory and Polyphilia, have both created loads of great videos about non-monogamous media. So if you're looking for, I don't know, some role models, some examples and things to share with people, go check out what these guys have reviewed, and yeah, go forth and research. But growing up, very rarely did any of us get the chance to see non-monogamous, healthy relationships, or even unhealthy relationships, represented on the telly in a way that just normalised them. People often use the argument of, well, monogamy is the best, it's the ideal, it's what animals do, it's natural, it's just the most inherent thing. But actually, less than 3% of animals are monogamous. And we are not one of them. Our monogamy is socialized. It doesn't naturally happen. Okay, yeah, pair bonding happens, but being with one partner for your entire life does not come naturally to humans. You see it time and time again, how people cheat and people get divorced and people break up. Like, one partner forever is not realistic for most humans. That is a fact. Okay. Now, I guess I've largely been speaking about just figuring out that you're non-monogamous as an individual, and that is the easiest way to do it, I think, when you're on your own. But let's not pretend that a lot of the time people are in a monogamous relationship and they figure out that they're non-monogamous, and this adds so many extra layers of complexity and difficult feelings and guilt, because you have another partner to consider, you have another heart to consider. Particularly if you're married, this can feel very difficult. You've been conditioned, along with the rest of us, that having one single romantic relationship that lasts forever, that leads to marriage, and then never straying outside of that, is the ultimate aim of our lives, is the pinnacle, is the most important way to love. And that relationship should be upheld at all costs and put in front of everything else. We've all been taught that marriage is about self-restraint, self-control, sacrifice, and particularly as a woman, that virtue is a really important quality. In fact, one of your most important and valuable qualities as a woman. And don't get me wrong, like, I do truly believe that taking care of each other's hearts and being kind to each other is the most important thing in this world. But you're a human too, and you deserve to live a life that is authentic to yourself. You deserve to live in a way that nourishes your soul. You deserve to live your truth, and not in a way that makes you feel boxed in, claustrophobic, like you're living a lie or role-playing someone else every day. Let's not pretend that it's not a soul-crushing experience to realise, whilst within an otherwise perfect relationship, that ultimately it's never going to satisfy you. You're never going to get to be the person you want to be in that relationship. That is deeply upsetting and very difficult to reconcile. But so is knowing that each year that passes is going to slowly crush your spirit, because you are simply not living your life in a way that feels right to you. Let's also not pretend that this is exclusively a non-monogamous problem. You know, this happens in relationships all the time. What we're looking at is when two people want different things, right? Whether that's sexually, you are incompatible and you want different things, or you stop having sex, or you want to explore kink. Whether it's having kids or not having kids, living in a particular city or country, or that you want to explore intimacy with more than one person. Does having this desire in any of these categories make you a bad person? No, it does not. It makes you human. And it means you have a decision to make. And usually people go in one of three ways. You decide, you know what, my needs are not important, I'm going to push them down, and I'm just going to get on with this for the sake of my partner, the sake of my family, whatever it is. Option number 2 is you decide to not communicate, but still pursue whichever thing it is. And that could look like cheating, that could look like making a big life decision without telling your partner and springing it on them, deceiving them in some way, which, let's face it, a lot of people do. Option 3, communicate your truth in a way that is kind and considerate, and leave it up to the other person to decide whether they want to collaborate on whatever version of this relationship you want moving forward. And at that point, they can choose to leave or stay and work on it with you. You cannot control someone else's reaction to what you have to say to them, but you can control your actions, your own actions. You are in control of those. You can choose to be someone who communicates honestly, even if it is going to hurt the person that you're communicating to. As I said, you can control what you do. You can't control how they react. Are there ways that you might decide to act that make you a total dick? Yes, there are. Deceiving, cheating, dick moves. But is communicating your truth to your person, does that make you a bad person? No, it doesn't. So if you're grappling with feelings of guilt and shame, and you know that the external opinion doesn't matter, you're still living your truth, how do you deal with that? Because that feeling is obviously very real for you. Let me ask you this. Who benefits from you feeling bad about being you? Who benefits from you not living your most authentic, sexual, romantic, community-based life? Who benefits? Because it's not you. You don't benefit from not doing that. Who benefits? The system benefits. You've got a one-way ticket to marriage, settling down, having kids, buying a house, getting on the property ladder, having a good job, spending all your money on things, items, being so focused on your kids and your spouse and your house that you have no time to think about what else is wrong with the world. You have no mental capacity to ever question anything. You're a good citizen who spends lots of money, and that's that. Capitalism benefits, the state benefits, and the people around you, if they don't want to think about it, I guess they also benefit, because you living your truth is very confronting to them. So if you just stay small and do what you're supposed to do, be a good girl, be a good boy, it's easier for everyone, because no one has to be confronted with the fact that there's another way to live. So here's an exercise that I want you to do. This is something that I do with my non-monogamy peer support clients sometimes. Think about every single voice in your head, every negative piece of self-talk that is telling you that you are a bad person for wanting non-monogamy, and write down exactly what they're saying. So maybe there's a voice in your head that says you're selfish. Maybe there's a voice in your head that says wanting to love more than one person makes me a bad person, makes me a selfish person, like whatever that negative self-talk is. Write them all down. Especially if something comes into your head and you're like, oh, that's stupid, I shouldn't write that down. Write that down, because it's still in your head, and we don't want it to be in your head anymore. We want to replace that information with your truth. For each thing that you write down, figure out where that came from. Like, where did you pick up that idea? Like, why do you have the belief that having two partners is bad? Like, why do you have the belief that wanting to have sex with more than one person makes you a horrible person? Where have you picked up that belief from? Was it something your mum said when you were growing up about how she couldn't wait for you to be married and settle down, so therefore when you do something outside of that you feel like you're letting her down? Is it something you heard on the telly? Is it something that you read in a magazine? Did you read it in some fucking glossy Cosmo magazine? Did you hear it at school? Have you heard it from multiple sources? Is it from your friend? Did someone once say like, ugh, look at those non-monogamous people, they're disgusting, how embarrassing? Like, where have you picked up all of these ideas from? I want you to write it down, and I want you to figure out, so you can separate your beliefs from everything that you've internalized from all of the external stimulus in your life, okay? And when you've done that, I want you to look at each of these statements, and I want you to write next to it what you truly believe, the inverse of the statement, or your truth in relation to that statement. So if the idea that you've internalized is being in love with more than one person is wrong, is unnatural, whatever, what is your truth? Like, is your truth being in love with more than one person is the most natural thing in the world to me? Being in love with more than one person is a reflection of how big my heart is. I have the capacity to love multiple people, and that is good. Counter the points, write your truth down, okay? It's powerful exercise. If you do this exercise, please let me know if anything interesting came up for you in the comments. Please let me know in the comments, what perspective were you coming to this video from? Did you want to call me a bad person? Are you feeling like a bad person? Has someone called you a bad person? Please enlighten me, I would love to know. Subscribe to my channel, follow me on Instagram for more conversations like this, Polly and Poppy, and I'll see you next time.